Welcome to Homegrown Florida. I'd like to talk to you about something a little bit different today. Usually I jump right into growing a certain vegetable or preserving your harvest, but I wanted to back up a bit and tell you why gardening and growing my own food has literally changed my entire life. And I don't mean that in a little way, I mean that in a really big way. I spent 2 decades moving up the corporate ladder in the healthcare IT industry. My days consisted of 3 hours of commuting, then 8 to 12 hours in a cubicle. By the time I got home, I was mentally exhausted. I didn't have any hobbies or passions. My whole world revolved around my job. Dinner consisted of chicken nuggets or fast food, and always was accompanied by a very big glass of wine, if not a little bit more. The weekends were spent rushing to get all the things done that I didn't have time for during the week, like laundry, cleaning, and even sleeping. I would squeeze in an hour of church on Sundays and would be so proud of myself for being able to dedicate a whole hour to my spirituality. My job revolved around helping to make people healthy, but my health was the last thing on my mind. I certainly didn't have time for that. When I turned 35, I started to really wonder if this was what life was all about. Working and money. I was struggling with my purpose and how to be truly happy because my life lacked both. The changes in my life started small. I remember buying a pepper plant and sticking it in my backyard. Watching it grow and produce peppers was intriguing to me. Fast forward 5 years. I left my big job and started my urban garden. I became addicted to learning. I read everything I could get my hands on and did experiments in the garden, testing out all the different methods to grow my own food. These are the 5 things I learned from gardening that changed my life. The first was a huge improvement to my mental health. I was on 4 different antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. Another one to help me sleep, caffeine to wake me up, and alcohol to help me unwind from a long day at the office. It wasn't all bad. The company I worked for was amazing and the people were inspiring. I was jealous of the passion they had because I didn't. So when my husband and I started working towards our goals to live a different life outside of the 9 to 5, he gave me great advice. He told me I needed to find a hobby. I thought it was silly at the time, but he explained to me that once I left my career, I might struggle in finding my purpose since my job was my whole life. So I thought I would get back into gardening. I dabbled in it for years before and I found it enjoyable, but never really focused on it. But once I got serious about gardening, there was no stopping me. For the first time in my entire life, I had passion. I studied everything I could find about gardening. That eventually led to studying self-sufficiency, sustainability, and minimalism. It's funny that every step I take towards this new life, the more purpose and happiness I have. I'm now down to 1 medication. I sleep like 9 hours a night. I don't drink anymore, and I finally found my passion after being on this planet for 40 years. The second thing that drastically changed in my life was my physical health. Years ago, I was slightly overweight with very low energy. I would try different fad diets, and I basically starved myself. Spent hours in the gym, but none of it worked. I would lose, then gain back the weight. Once I started gardening, things just started to happen naturally. I wanted to eat the food I grew, so I found myself eating way healthier. Working in the garden became my exercise, and I didn't even think it was exercise. Before I knew it, I started losing weight. a little at a time. Then all of a sudden my clothes didn't fit. And by the time I stepped on the scale, I had reached my goal weight. I haven't weighed this since high school, and I'm not even trying. It was the strangest thing to me. The third area of my life that changed pretty dramatically was my view of food. I love food. I have always loved food, but I have this love-hate relationship with it. The more I loved it, the more I weighed. Gardening made me look at food in a drastically different way. First, it was in a simple way. Like, if I'm going to grow it, I'm going to eat it. Otherwise, it's just being wasteful. Then it was learning to be inventive with cooking these different varieties of vegetables I was growing, some of which I have never even heard of, seen, or even knew existed. The place I'm at now is really focused on nutrition. I learned that 90% of the nutrition in greens like kale and spinach are basically gone after 24 hours of being picked. Apples from the grocery store can be up to a year old, just sitting in storage, sprayed with chemicals to keep them from rotting, and then sold to customers. Processed foods have tons of things added that don't really add to the nutritional value. But the food I'm growing in my garden and processing myself have so much flavor and so much more nutrition because it's fresh out of the ground and then on our table that night. Even when I can my own food, I'm doing it with no chemicals to preserve the food. Simple things like lemon juice and vinegar preserve my food. I ferment flour to make sourdough bread, cabbage to make sauerkraut, and I even use fruit peels to make vinegar. The fourth thing gardening did to change my life was connect me to nature and to my place on this planet. My husband and I love documentaries, so you can imagine that I binge watched so many agricultural and climate documentaries as I could, and I still do. It's always hard to know what is true and what is hype, so I try to focus on the things that I know from my own experiences. This is what I know. The more food I grow organically, the less synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides are used in big agriculture because I'm no longer buying them. I'm just one person, but I'm part of a bigger community that does this too. If I'm not buying food from the store, less food is needed in my area to be shipped, which uses gas for trucks, trains, and ships. I also use less gas in my own car going to the store. This doesn't mean I never go to the store. I'm not completely self-sufficient. I still have to buy things, but each change I make is a step in the right direction. And finally, the most important thing to me is my connection to nature. I used to drive by tons of trees and animals on my way to work, and I never even noticed them. Now I literally stop in my tracks to watch a monarch butterfly land on my zinnia flowers and just stare at it until it finally leaves. I dug a small hole in my bed to put in a new seedling, and this huge, fat earthworm popped out. In the past, I would have been completely grossed out and probably screamed. Now I literally apologize to the little guy for disturbing him while gently covering him back up and finding a new spot to put my seedling. Like, who does that? I've learned that the earthworm, the butterfly, the bees, even the bad bugs, they feed and pollinate the plants that I grow, the food that I eat. Then the plant creates its own seed, which falls to the ground and grows again. The food scraps and plant debris left over after the plant dies is then composted to make food for the next set of plants. It's a complete cycle, and I'm just a small part of it. I'm always amazed by it, and it leaves me in awe. The fifth way that gardening changed my life is the community. I swear this community is the happiest and most helpful people. In all my online groups, I can see a difference in the kindness and helpfulness of gardeners compared to maybe some other hobbies or lifestyles. I'm guessing it's all the sunshine and nutritional food. But to be serious, life can be lonely. The self-sufficient life is a different kind of life, and not a lot of people are into it. In the beginning, it was a little hard to find people who shared my passion. My husband isn't much into gardening part, but he absolutely loves the food and is into leading a healthy life that is focused on nutrition and self-sufficiency, so I'm a very lucky woman to have him. I can always talk to him about the garden. I literally spent an hour talking about soil over dinner, and he was actually interested. I have a good man. The rest of my family and friends have been great. They have listened to me talk for hours about the garden. God bless them. They love me so much, but I could see their eyes glazing over. But the support I've received from local gardeners, online communities, and the awesome engagement from you guys, my subscribers and viewers, makes my life so full. I really can't thank you all enough. From the bottom of my heart, I am grateful for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this might help to motivate you in taking that first step into gardening. You don't need to buy a farm or build a raised bed. All you need is the ground, a little seed, and a willingness to try.